Greetings, fellow primates. Jim the Ape here. Now, before I get into what I wanted to talk about in this video, I owe a huge thank you to Undoomed for retweeting my last video. Now, if you're here because of that, then awesome. And if you're not, you should go check out his channel, because not only is he a cool dude who got more eyes on my content, but he makes really good videos as well. And he has a voice that's even sexier than mine. Now, into the topic of what I wanted to talk about. Since it is nearing the end of October, and Halloween is this Saturday, and it is Thursday as I'm recording this video, I wanted to talk about Halloween costumes, and how some people find certain Halloween costumes offensive. And there's really four main points that I wanted to hit on with this subject. The first is cultural appropriation. The second is slutty costumes. The third is blackface. And the fourth is purposefully offensive costumes. Now, about cultural appropriation, if you don't know what this is, essentially there are ad campaigns where people, for example, of African American descent, might hold up a picture of somebody dressing in some kind of tribal garb, or someone who is Native American will hold up a picture of a person who's dressed like a traditional view of a Native American, what with the feathers and the poncho thingies. I'm not sure exactly what you call those things, but anyway, they and they say things like, you know, this is my culture and it's not a costume. Well, I do have a few responses to this mentality. First of which is, have you ever considered that maybe in some way they're actually celebrating that culture, whether or not it happens to be their own? And even if they aren't, a costume is really just a part of the fun of Halloween. That's part of the tradition. It's not necessarily that they're trying to insult a particular culture. They're just dressing a certain way because that's what the holiday is about. You know, dressing as something that you are not and having fun with it. And another thing about it is that costumes and cultures are two vastly different things. And most people can tell the difference between what is a colorful caricature and what is the reality of the situation. Most people can tell the difference between a costume and a legitimate cultural difference. Like, most people can tell the difference between a legitimately Native American person and someone who's just dressing up in such a costume to play cowboys and Indians. On to my next point about slutty costumes. The first thing I want to say about this is that this is really only a problem if you're some kind of a prude who has a problem with women expressing their sexuality. And me being an ape, I really don't care. I mean, there are plenty of apes, male and female, who express themselves by sticking their asses out. You humans probably think that's ridiculous, but that's just kind of how we do things. The bottom line is, if you humans don't care about how we apes express ourselves sexually, then I will return the favor and not care about yours. Another thing is that these so-called sexy costumes are far from the only option for adult female humans. And just like any other human, they can dress however they like. And I don't particularly care. I think that that is covered by your First Amendment freedom of expression. Another thing is that it's been said, and I believe it's a movie quote of some kind, but I haven't seen the film that it's from, It's been said that Halloween is the one night a year that it's socially acceptable to dress in a scantily clad manner and go out in public dressed like that. Now, as I've stated before, I don't care one way or the other, but I can see the reasoning behind this because, again, it's part of the holiday, dressing up as something that you are not. And in some ways, women who are normally pretty modest or mild-mannered could go out dressed in something that appears pretty wild or pretty sexual. And that's perhaps an expression of their innermost desires, or maybe it's just a fun way to dress up and be different for one night a year. And now to talking about blackface. Yes, there was recently a teacher who got into some hot water on social media for dressing as Kanye West as a sort of tag team costume with, I believe, his wife or his girlfriend, who they decided to go to some Halloween party as Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, which to me is really just making fun of two cultural icons because they're kind of easy to make fun of. Have you seen them? They're kind of a ridiculous couple of people. And I think their egos and their wallets probably make up for them being made fun of. So don't feel too bad about them. At any rate, I think that if it makes the costume more accurate to, say, a specific person like Kanye West, or a specific character like that character from Orange is the New Black that some people got in trouble for dressing as, I don't see why some temporary face coloring should just automatically be seen as offensive regardless of context. And another thing, this is another instance where it's really only a problem in certain contexts. And in this case, I would say that it's only really a problem if the costume is meant to stereotype all black people as being a certain way, which most costumes generally aren't. They're usually of a specific person, a specific character, or, just for fun. You do remember that Halloween is supposed to be fun, right? And also, lest we forget that black is not the only race that can be stereotyped or made into a costume. If you get a little container of baby powder, you can put yourself in whiteface. That's just the way it is. And most people don't usually find that offensive. But I guess racism only goes one way, right? And lastly, I'd like to talk about purposefully offensive costumes, which also could be a category that some of the previous costumes I've talked about could fit into. And this really is something I want to talk about because sometimes, and I don't know how many of you humans understand this, but even I as an ape understand this. Sometimes the fun of Halloween for adults, that is to say people who are too old for trick-or-treating, may not have children of their own to supervise, and may not find anything particularly scary as it pertains to Halloween imagery. Sometimes part of the fun for those humans is to troll the shit out of sensitive SJWs. And an example of this that I can think of is that one year, Bill Maher dressed as Steve Irwin, the, at that time, recently deceased Steve Irwin, and the costume was complete with a fake stingray barb sticking out of his chest. Also, there have been examples where people have gone as a tag team costume as Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. And people have dressed as caricatures of Muslim extremist terrorists, and I've even seen one or two examples on social media of people who have dressed as Boston Marathon victims. And you say, "Oh, how dare you, people died." But that's kind of the point. These are costumes that are offensive on purpose. And when you call these people out, and when you call out their costumes for being offensive, the thing is, you're giving them exactly what they want, which is attention. And depending on the costume, they can get it in droves. Now, in closing, I would like to say that everyone has freedom of expression in this country. So they can dress as whatever they want. And your feelings on the matter don't give you the right to take that freedom away. In other words, you may be offended at someone's Halloween costume, but that doesn't change the fact that they have the right to wear it. I personally don't care if any of you humans go around dressed as gorillas this Halloween. That's not my concern. My concern is the real problem of apes who have to grow up in captivity because you humans think it's acceptable to put them in cages on display for your amusement. If you'd like to imagine what that's like, just imagine a race of superhumans who have the technology to trap you inside a little glass box where they can stare at you all day just for being hairier than they are. But that's besides the point. So I'll wrap this up by saying, have a happy Halloween and dress as whatever you want. Don't let these professional victims ruin the fun for you. Happy Halloween, everybody.